Hello, my name is Erin, and I'm the Public Relations Officer and the Editorial Rep for the Southern Branch of the Irish Patchwork Society. In 2016, the Southern Branch of the Irish Patchwork Society is focusing on providing education for newer patchworkers. In this video, we'll be discussing the main tools that you need if you'd like to start patchworking. We'll talk about just the basics, and then I'll show you some ones that you can get once you've maybe done a quilt or two. So let's get started. So one of the first things you're going to need if you're going to start patchworking is a sewing machine, and I have a Juki TL2010Q, the Quilter's edition. It is a straight stitch only machine, and it sews quickly. It is 1500 stitches per minute, and this is what I do my main patchworking and free motioning on. Something else you're going to need if you're going to get involved into patchwork is a rotary cutting system, and this includes a rotary cutting mat. You don't have to have the lines indicating the measurements on here, because you can use the ones that are on your ruler, but you need one of these self-healing rubbery mats. Mine is two-sided. It's yellow on one side and green on the other. You're also going to need some rotary cutters. I have three sizes here. We have a 28mm, a 60mm, and a 45mm. 45mm is good for just general cutting. I find the 60mm nice to use if you're doing long cuts, and then the 28mm is good for if you're doing curved cuts. It works really well. You'll also need some replacement blades for these rotary cutters. And you'll also need some acrylic rulers. I have an 8.5 by 24 inch, and I also have a 6-inch square here, but there are many kinds of rulers out there. A few other things that are necessary for creating a quilt top. One is a seam ripper. Every quilter that I know has used a seam ripper. You use a seam ripper to rip out stitches that you do not want in your patchwork. You're also going to need a pin cushion. Mine is magnetic, as you can see here, and some pins. I find these glass head ones, which are really thin and sharp, work really well. You'll also need a small pair of scissors to trim threads or to trim your pieces of patchwork apart. You'll need some marking pens. There's all sorts of different ones here. This friction pen disappears with heat. This blue pen is erased with water, and this purple pen is erased by air. You'll also need some thread here. I have just one big cone of white thread there that I use. And you'll also need an iron and an ironing surface. Obviously, you're not going to do your ironing right here on the surface here. You would use an ironing board or a heat-resistant surface. Now, to finish off your quilt top and make it into a real quilt, you're going to need to do something that's called basting, and that is layering your quilt top with some batting or wadding, and then your quilt back. And then you secure those either with spray adhesive, or my way of choice is pin basting. We have these curved pins that helps inserting the pin into your quilt sandwich much easier. And you also may find that a long tape measure would help you with your sewing as well. Mine goes to 120 inches. Now, if you're going to be finishing your quilts yourself, you're going to need a few more tools to complete that. These are tools that will work with your domestic sewing machine. First off here is a walking foot. This is a walking foot that goes with my Juki machine. You'll notice that it has this little lever here that goes on the needle bar, and that controls these feed dogs here. So you'll have feed dogs not only from the bottom of the machine, but from the top as well to help move the fabric. And that helps prevent bunching and just very general ugliness. You may also need, if you decide to do some free motion quilting, this tool here, which is called a darning foot, or a free motion foot. You may see it referred to as either one of those things. This just helps to provide some support while you're doing your free motion quilting. So that's one for my Juki machine. You'll also need an extension table. Now this is one that goes with my other machine. It's a Brother 950D. So it's it's a small extension table, but it works well to show you here on the camera because the Juki extension table is much larger. This just helps to prevent some pulling while you're actually doing the motion of the quilt on your machine. It just helps to provide some support. And the last thing you may find that is helpful to do some free motion quilting is a Supreme slider. Now this, I'll take it out of the package for you. So on one side it's coated with this pink kind of, it's not sticky to the touch, but it sticks to plastic. Supreme slider. Your needle goes up and down in this small part in the center. You may notice I have a cutout here on mine. That's because I modified it to work with my Brother machine before I had purchased my Juki. This just helps provide a nice slick surface in which to move your quilt. You'll see that it works here on the table. It's not moving around, and so you move your quilt just around and around, and it just helps to provide, decrease the drag on your quilt, and just helps to provide a better, easier workstation. This is completely optional. However, if you're going to do some quilting on your domestic sewing machine, depending if you're doing straight line, I'd recommend using a walking foot, and if you're doing more free motion, a darning foot. So those are those tools that you may need. Finally, we have some bonus tools here that you may find that are helpful when you begin patchworking. The first is to have a bit of a fabric stash. So I have here a fat quarter bundle. This is by Robert Kaufman. This is Rotary, which is designed by Elizabeth Hartman. So there is a fat quarter bundle, and then here's just a fat quarter roll-up that just a fabric store has created. So you may find having a stash will help you with your patchworking adventures. You may also find that a color wheel is also really helpful when you're choosing out fabrics and colors to create your quilts. And finally, the wealth of specialty rulers that are out here. I find this 2.5 by 18 really nice to cut strips. This block lock ruler here, trying to see if you can, here, I'll just put it down like that. This is really helpful with creating half square triangles. You put your seam in that little groove there, and it's really helpful to trim. There's just all sorts of different specialty rulers that you can get. Here's a 4.5-inch square ruler that just helps with trimming down some blocks. I also have a 6.5-inch ruler that's really helpful with trimming down blocks. And then here's another example of a specialty ruler. This is the Sidekick ruler, which is designed by Julie Herman, who is Jaybird Quilts. It creates 3 different shapes. You can create diamonds out of strips here. So you can make them ranging from 1.5 inches to 4.5 inches. You can also create large triangles using this ruler. Again, just using strips. And then you can also create half triangles as well. And just whichever way you manipulate the ruler, sometimes you have it facing that way, sometimes you have it facing that way. It helps you to create these specialty shapes and sizes out of strips. So hopefully you found this video helpful. Please give us a comment or a suggestion for videos you'd like to see in the future. And thank you very much.